What is garbage collection? This is a very important question like abstract class and interface differences. So let's see the definition first. The garbage collector manages the allocation and release of memory in .NET Framework. If you remember CLR, then you remember it manages the execution of program, right? Operations like memory management, right? So garbage collection is one of the responsibilities of CLR, which is the part of the .NET Framework work only. For example, suppose you create one project and write this code. When application will run, this employee object will be created and then it is used to call getSalary method. But after that, what will happen to this employee project? This object is still there in the memory with no use, right? Now this is the responsibility of the garbage collector to dispose or release this employee object. So garbage collector will dispose this employee object automatically when it is no longer needed. Similarly, you can have many objects in your application like this. See how there are so many objects present in the memory and so less free memory space is there before garbage collector run, right? And after garbage collector will run, many unused objects or resources are released or disposed. And then the free memory level has also increased, which is really good, right? So that is the job of the garbage collector, and that is what is garbage collection. What are generations in garbage collection? Now we already know garbage collection is to release the objects which are no longer needed, right? So .NET Framework has a mechanism to decide which objects are no longer needed, and that mechanism we call generations. Generation is a mechanism to collect the short-lived objects more frequently than longer-lived objects. Let me explain this, okay? Now, there are three types of generations, generation 0, 1 and 2. When garbage collector will run first time, it will put the newly created objects in generation 0, okay? Garbage collector will also check here that if there is any object which is already present in this generation 0, then if the object is still in use inside the application, if the answer is yes, then garbage collector will move that object to generation 1. But if this object is no longer in use, then this garbage collector will dispose the no longer used object and claim its memory, okay? The same way, sometime garbage collector will visit generation 1 and will check whether the object present there are currently in use or not. If object is in use, then garbage collector will put them in generation 2, and if it is no longer used, then again it will dispose them. Now the point is, garbage collector will more frequently visit generation 0 and only sometimes it will visit generation 1 and will very rarely will visit generation 2. That means the objects in generation 1 and 2 are lived more than generation 0 objects because garbage collector do not visit generation 1 and 2 generation frequently, right? The conclusion is the objects which are used more and needed more will be first be promoted to generation 1 and then generation 2. And if there are more and more required, then garbage collector will never release them, okay, will never dispose them. So that way garbage collector with the help of generations dispose the short-lived objects more frequently than the longer-lived objects. That is what was the definition was, right? I hope now you have some understanding of generations in garbage collection. This is again a very important question here. What is the difference between dispose and finalize? First, let's see what is the similarity between them, okay? Both dispose and finalize method are used to release the unmanaged object which are no longer required. This is the similarity. Now the difference is finalize method is called automatically by the garbage collector, but the dispose method is called explicitly by the code to release any unmanaged object. Meaning you have to do nothing to call the finalize method, it will automatically call by the garbage collector. But yes, for dispose method you have to write the code. Now if you know using statement, then you know internally this using will call the dispose method of SQL connection class, right? because SQL connection class of .NET framework has already this dispose method. But suppose you have some class like this employee class and you want to implement dispose method for employee class. So you have to write some code, something like this here. Now this implementation whole is not important to remember, but you should be aware about this, that this is the thing. First implement like employee from iDisposable interface you have to implement. Then this dispose method you have to implement here. Inside the dispose method you can call one dispose method. Remember, this dispose is different from the above one. Okay, you can name something else to do it also. Okay, so that is the here down you can see the dispose method body, and here you can release the unmanaged or managed objects as per the requirement. And after that, like this SQL connection class you can use using statement with employee class also. I'm not getting into the details of the implementation of dispose method here because our actual question was what is the difference between dispose and finalize method. And as I already said it, finalize method is called automatically by the garbage collector, but the dispose method is called explicitly by the code to release any unmanaged object. That you have to remember. What is the difference between finalize and finally methods? There is no relation between these except their names are somewhat similar. Finalize method is used for garbage collection. So before destroying any object, this method is called as part of the cleanup activity by garbage collector. On the other hand, if you see this code, then you will know finally block is used in exception handling. So the definition is finally block is used in exception handling for executing the code irrespective of the exception occurred or not. Another difference is garbage collector will call finalize method automatically in the background. So you do not have to write any code for it, okay? But here is the code where you have to write the code for finally block here, okay, right? The code inside this block will definitely execute irrespective of this exception. So basically you have to write the code for finally block, okay? So that's it, that's are the differences. Here is one tricky question. Can we force garbage collector to run? We all know garbage collector to run automatically by the .NET framework, right? But can we somehow force it to run? The answer is yes. By calling gc.collect method, we can force garbage collector to run in our application. But this is not recommended. Instead, better to use dispose method. This is the sample code here where we are first creating two objects obj1 and obj2. Then we are setting them to null, which will indicate they are no longer required and therefore eligible for the garbage collection. And finally, we will trigger this method gc.collect method, which is the part of the system namespace. So the memory used by these obj1 and obj2 object will now be released. This is the way, but it is not recommended. The reason is gc.collect will call garbage collector, which will start checking all the other objects also, right? Which is then very like costly performance will be there. Rather use dispose method because that will only release the objects which you want to release. That will not check all other objects, and that is the answer.